Good afternoon. Welcome to everybody who's joined us today. My name's John Minns. I'm a board member of the Proptech Association of Australia, and it is seriously great to have you all here for our monthly Proptech panel discussion. I'm coming to you from beautiful Ngunnawal country. And before I begin, in the spirit of reconciliation and healing, Proptech Association of Australia would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea and community. We pay our respects to their elders, past, present and emerging, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples joining us today. I would especially like to thank our founding sponsors, Stone and Chalk, who've made this event possible yet again. I'd especially like to thank for those who don't know, Stone and Chalk was founded as a not-for-profit in Sydney in 2015, and it was to help fintech startups commercialise and grow. From 40 startups in that year, it now has around 200 in Sydney, Melbourne and Adelaide, covering all areas of emerging technology, and that includes PropTech. Currently, we've got around 30 PropTechs who call Stone and Chalk home, so a real success story. Special thanks also to our other foundation sponsors, so Ashurst Lawyers, Macquarie Bank, Real Estate Institute of Western Australia, Pexar, WebIT List Once, and I'm particularly looking forward to today's panel as they're discussing and solving some significant friction points in property transactions. And to hand over to the all-important start, I'm going to hand you over to our Vice President of Proptech Association, Jennifer Harrison, to conduct the discussion. So over to you, Jen.
Thank you, John. Hello and welcome to this final PropTech panel for 2021. We will be back in 2022. So if you don't already follow us on LinkedIn or subscribe to our newsletter, please do that so we can stay in touch. We're also really looking forward next year to having some in-person events. As John said, I'm Jennifer Harrison and I'm Vice President of the PropTech Association Australia. And today on the panel, we are going to be talking about two of my most favourite things, PropTech and FinTech. Before I moved into the innovation ecosystem, I had a day job for many, many years working full-time in banking and finance. And I can still remember back in 2015, 2016, people were starting to talk about FinTech and this place in Sydney called Stone and Chalk. And I walked into Stone and Chalk one day in about November 2016 and discovered the amazing world of FinTech and have never really left. Now, property and finance are very closely connected in more ways than one. And personally, I'm really interested in the intersections. So when the opportunity arose last year to get into PropTech, I really didn't hesitate. It's interesting for me to see how the real estate industry tackles some challenges that are very similar, if not identical, to challenges faced in the finance industry. So credit risk is just one example. In finance, a lender needs to understand who they are lending to and whether the borrower can afford the loan. In residential lettings, the landlord needs to know who they're letting live in the property and whether they can afford the rent. The core problem is affordability. But traditionally, the way banking has gone about this versus property has been quite different. And even today, I think finance has a lot that they can show to property about ways that technology can make this better. Payments obviously are everywhere in property. And more these days, as generation rent is coming through and demanding better, generation rent wants help to budget and prepare ahead for bills and have an overall wellness program around their personal finances, not just be able to pay the rent on time every month. So this month we have three of PropTech and FinTech's finest on the panel, so we can learn more about open banking, data aggregation and insights, payments, budgeting and bills and more. So let's meet the expert guests. First off is Kyle Abourizk, who is in the growth team for Australia New Zealand at Basiq. Hello, Kyle. Thank you for joining us. How are you today?
I'm good, Jennifer. Excited to be here and thanks for having me.
Where are you joining us from?
I am joining you from my home office in Sydney in Manly. Yeah.
Great. A second guest on the panel is Rebecca Ribeiro, who's a sales executive at Zepto. Hello, Rebecca. Thank you for joining us. How are you today?
I'm really good, Jennifer. I'm also really excited because I have payments and property, two of my probably love languages to talk about today.
I love that language, the language of love. Perfect. And Rebecca, where are you joining us from today?
I'm remote, so I live in Brisbane. Our hub is in Byron Bay. So we wouldn't say it was a headquarters, more of a hub because most of us work remotely.
Great. And our third guest is Jacob Serry, who is a co-founder of LIZpay. G'day, Jacob. Thank you for joining us. How are you today?
I'm going really well, thanks, Jennifer. Thank you very much for having us on today. It's really exciting.
Pleasure to have you. And where are you joining us from?
I'm based in, or LIZpay is based in Richmond in Victoria. So here at our head office, and really excited to tell the world about what it is that we're doing, and really excited to get into this.
Great. Thank you so much. Kyle, let's start with a bit of a discussion around open banking and data aggregation and insights. And for people who don't know Basiq, can you tell us in a nutshell who you are? What does Basiq do?
Sure. So over at Basiq, in a nutshell, we are the building blocks of financial services. So our goal here is to make finance easier. And the way we do that is by enabling any company out there to access customers' financial data. And those are things like transactions and all of the associated account data. And this data is really powerful as it allows companies like Proptechs the ability to produce things like income and expense reports and rental transaction insights, or be able to schedule payments. We consume consented financial data from every bank in Australia and other institutions like super funds, investment accounts, and fintechs. And this is really important because we're focused on providing a full financial picture to these customers. We're a developer-led company that has a focus on ease of integration, and any partner that's looking to consume this data can jump on our website, grab an API key, and get started.
Could you choose one challenge in there, or maybe one or two challenges in there that you mentioned, and let's understand a bit more about that challenge, and in particular how Basiq's building blocks help the customer to solve for that challenge?
Sure. So the core problem we're solving for is the idea of enabling fintech everywhere. So the way we do that is by providing consented access to customers' financial data. And we take this data and provide a holistic insight or view into a customer's financial picture. And this allows Proptechs to solve challenges through the entire life cycle. So a good example is through the commercial property sector, we can do things like helping out the trust accounting process by real-time enriching the transactions. We can help in the residential experience by providing income and expenses to help us assess what tenants are right for which properties. We've seen amazing innovations in the payment experience by understanding people's payment cycles and understanding their income to better schedule payments, or be smart with the way that we actually check balances before we take payments. So we've been really privileged to work with some Proptechs in this space, and they've gained a lot of momentum by starting to consume this data and using innovative technology to help really resolve some of these challenges through the entire cycle.
Yeah, you mentioned there rent and affordability analysis. And actually earlier this year, we had a panel with some of the digital mortgage providers like TikTok and 86400. And I know these days there are people in the market who can get all your information digitally and approve you for a home loan in less than an hour. I know people who are applying for rental properties and are still saying they're having to fill in forms, and they're being asked to provide physical copies of their bank statements. They're also sometimes being asked to pay an application fee of something like $50 or $70 so that all this information can be checked, and possibly also their credit bureau status can be checked. I think this is absolutely ripe for better using, some of the services that Basiq provides. Would you agree with me there?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the most exciting thing or the biggest thing that we see is that the Proptech is just really at the brink of this partnership between embedded finance and Proptech. And we're seeing new ideas and innovation come up every day. And I think something really important to note is that companies in the Proptech space really play a vital role in customers' lives. And the reason that is because the biggest financial decision we make is, renting or purchasing a home. Proptechs are at the forefront of that experience. So through the ability to gain access to this consented financial data, not only can we help get a tenant right for a rental property, we can onboard them to that property. Once they're in that property, we can even help them understand their finance better to nurture them on a journey to home ownership. And once they're in that home, we can then work with them to help them better understand finances to save for an investment property. So I think there's an incredible wealth of opportunities that innovative fintech and proptech companies are really working on helping consumers get better outcomes.
Fantastic. I love all of that. Now, earlier this year, Basiq obtained the status of unrestricted accredited data recipient. It's a bit of a mouthful. It's better known in the fintech and open banking world as being an ADR. It's under the consumer data right, which is also better known in Australia as open banking. Can you tell us in practical terms, what does that mean now and in the future for data and the services that Basiq can offer?
Yeah, absolutely. You're right. It is a mouthful and there is a whole lot of acronyms that still confuse me. But essentially, Basiq's been providing open banking-like services for over 6 years. And what open banking means, it's now a formalization of the services that we provide. And really, it's great news for us and our customers, because part of this process means banks are now required to create open banking APIs for platforms like Basiq to consume customer data from. And this means our customers are now going to have faster and more stable connections. Alongside that, there's also a new what we call consent process. So currently, if a customer wants to share their financial data, they actually need to provide their username and password. With open banking, there'll be a username and a one-time password. And that's really going to help our customers build greater trust in the onboarding process when they're looking to gain their customers' financial data. And so as an accredited data recipient, we can not only provide open banking data to our customers, but non-open banking customer data as well through a single unified API. So it doesn't matter the type of data our customers are looking to consume, we can take them on the journey for consuming all the types of data.
Okay. Do you have a favorite use case in there that's relevant for the real estate industry?
Yeah, absolutely. So this was part of the conversation I actually had with Jacob, and I don't want to steal his thunder, but I really do have a favorite application from personal experience. I'm a renter and I have been renting for a while, and I've experienced some of these challenges. So I think there's a few main things that we really want to help people with on this renting experience. And it's about making onboarding simple. It's about being smarter with the way we collect money, and it's about having serviceability at a glance. So if we look at it through the paces of an application, you've got an example of applying for a property. So through that consented financial data, we're able to get insight not only into the affordability or the income and expenses of that customer, but insight into prior rental payments. So as we talked about before, it's about streamlining not only the tenant's application process, but reducing the time associated with the agent to review that application. We look at onboarding. So no longer do we need manual documents. By having access to the financial data, we can instantly surface a BSB account number and full name to completely streamline that manual paper-based onboarding process. We look at things moving into a property, so looking at bonds or moving in costs. Through that same access to financial data, we can now understand a customer's financial picture and provide value-add services such as bond finance, moving costs, or BNPL type services. And then lastly, we've got things like setting up a payment arrangement. So now that we can understand the customer's pay cycle, we're able to intuitively select a payment cycle that fits them. And we can even be smarter with that through the ongoing access to the account, we can check a balance before we take direct debits to be really smart with the way that we produce the payments. So I guess this is just one example of the really cool innovation that we're seeing in the sector, and we're lucky enough to work with the PropTechs on solving these challenges.
And already just in that one example, Kyle, there is actually so much already in there of value. I'd love to hear just a little bit more before maybe moving over to Rebecca about a little bit more about maybe another PropTech example that you're working with, or possibly do you have an ideal customer?
Yeah, so we absolutely do have an ideal customer. I think some of the other really cool stuff that we're seeing happen at the moment is this idea of the PropTech ecosystem. So not just having an impact on the individual process of a rental application, but we've got companies like Techland that are using our financial data to do a buy now, sell later process. So they're actually enabling people who are selling their property to purchase a new property before they get the settlement of their home loan. So that idea of cultivating the ecosystem and solving channels throughout the entire property lifecycle, I think is something that we've been really excited to work with. In terms of who our ideal customer is, it's really easy for us. We're looking to work with innovative tech companies that are looking to consume consented financial data to provide better customer experiences. We're an open API, a developer-first platform, so some of our smaller customers integrate over it, and the focus there is for us to really work with them on how to consume the data and how to innovate off the back of that data. So I think that's really important to us.
Perfect. Well, thank you for the moment, Kyle. We'll come back and have a chat with you at the end. But Rebecca, can you please tell us, for people who don't know Zepto, in a nutshell, who are you and what do you do? Give us the elevator pitch.
Yep, so Zepto enables merchants to make, manage, and receive payments by connecting directly to the consumer's bank accounts. We create real-time data-driven account-to-account merchant payment solutions for an on-demand economy. So Zepto is actually a merchant-founded business to solve merchant problems outside of the box. So we're not conforming to what is just available in the banking system right now. We're future-proofing that payments for our merchants. And our brand promise is to level the playing field.
Fantastic. Now, some people might know you as Split Payments, which is your former name. Could you quickly talk us through the name change?
Yeah, so when I first came on board, we were Split Payments, but we did change to Zepto on the 31st of August this year. So the rebrand really came about because the business had evolved significantly since the launch in 2018. There's also been a bit of confusion because of split payments, like, are we a buy now, pay later company? Are we an app where they go and split the bills at the end of your pub meal? There's so many split businesses coming out right now. So we really felt like we needed a new name and a contemporary visual identity that will carry the business into the exciting future. So our CTO, Trev, came up with Zepto. So a Zepto second is a trillionth of a billionth of a second, or a decimal point followed by 20 zeros and a 1. So it's really, really fast. But Zepto is not just about the speed of payments. It also speaks to the speed of innovation in our industry, the precision and accuracy at enormous scale. So like I said, we're solving merchant problems outside of the box as they need.
Fantastic. Now, Zepto has two statuses, which people in finance might understand, but people in real estate might need them explained a little bit. One of those statuses is the unrestricted accredited data recipient under the consumer data right, which Basiq also has, which Kyle has explained a little bit. But the second status that is very relevant to you as a payments provider is that you are an approved connected institution directly integrated into Australia's real-time payment system, the new payments platform. In practical terms, can you paint a picture for us, please, as to what do those statuses mean for customers, both now and in the future?
Yep, exactly. So we do use right now open banking aggregators such as Basiq. So we use them for a really amazing connector product. With us getting our ADR, we are actually legally able to obtain that information as well. So like Jake said, not only access to the banking rails, but we're talking energy, telco, and government, so that we can provide a very, very world-class experience for everybody. So with these accreditation, we're positioned to lead that revolution in payments processing since the advent of credit cards and online banking, because we're delivering that real-time payment information via the open banking. And we want to drive a huge shift in the real-time account-to-account payments to become the default payment method. Because as we talked about, Jennifer, account-to-account is the most practical and cost-effective way to move money in Australia. So on a purely practical point, from being a connected institution with the MPP, this puts Zepto as close to the real-time payment rails as physically possible. So for us, we don't have to connect into a sponsoring bank, nor use a third party to access the MPP for Pay 2, or what's coming out in, hopefully June next year, instant direct debit.
And does that mean that you don't have any daily caps or transaction limits? Because in property, sometimes, if you're paying a deposit if you're buying a property and you've got to pay your 10% deposit, that could be a really big amount of money that you need to move.
Yeah, absolutely. So before we became a connected institution, we were actually an identified institution with the NPPA. We actually have no limits as to how much money you can move. So this is across all industries. So we work in digital currency, gambling, real estate with that. So like doing your sales transaction, you can move hundreds of thousands of dollars in one go. And we don't have any limitation to that on our platform.
Let's talk a little bit more about that use case of paying the deposit when you're buying a property and that 10% deposit being due and payable. And if you're buying at auction, technically it's due on the fall of the auctioneer's hammer. But also I'm curious to know a little bit more about rent collection by landlords. And could you paint us a little picture as to how people might be doing it if they're doing it kind of old school versus how they could do it if they were working with a pay tech like Zepto?
So yeah, we'll talk about it. A little of the rentals and sales kind of overlap in what we can do. So right now we would call it a legacy payment. So let's say you're taking your rent, you're either doing blind direct debit. So you're just pulling the funds and hoping they settle in 36 to 72 hours. So T+2. So that means if you pull it on a Friday, it's not going to settle till Wednesday probably. Now they do that. They also do bank transfers so they can pay the rent or the deposit like that. Let's say they forget the reference number in the bank transfer. The time that it takes for somebody to manually go in and reconcile that in the trust is huge. And then you have BPay. So BPay is also on the legacy rails. It does not settle in real time. Real time to us at Zepto through the MPP is sub 2 seconds with a massive amount of metadata that comes with it. So when you're talking about rental payments, we can overlay the open banking, like through our Basiq connector piece, and digitally onboard that renter and tokenize that session. Now, when we go to pull the money, so direct debit the money out, we'll ping the account to make sure that the funds are sufficient or not. Let's say the funds are sufficient. We'll go and execute that transaction because we checked that a little bit before the exchange point. So they have less time to go below all of their money in their account. But on the reverse side, we check the sufficient funds and they are insufficient. That tenant, you know now 3 days in advance that they're going to be in arrears. And that's huge for you. Traditionally, you would direct debit the tenant, wait 3 business days, direct debit the tenant again, wait another 3 business days. So you're talking 10 days. So we're giving you a jump.
Would there be a fee in there as well, like a dishonor fee or a?
No, so through the platform, since we're not executing the transaction, we're saving the tenant from actually having that dishonor fee.
Yeah.
And what we're going to do is webhook in real time the platform so that there can be intervention. Do you direct debit the next day? Does the PM give them a call? Or do you spin up a pay ID so they could push the money and settle into sub 2 seconds? So chasing those arrears 3 days in advance could save you if you have 1,000 properties at $500. You know, that's about $500,000 direct debiting, 1%, $5,000, not too bad. 2% is 10, 3% is 15, and 4% is $20,000. So it's really affecting the cash flow of both the agency as well as the disbursements to the owners, to be honest.
Yeah. And a lot of what we're hearing elsewhere in the real estate industry is that the property managers are quite stressed. You know, they've got a lot of properties to take care of, and a lot of them are still doing things the old way because the agencies are owned by, you know, older people, and this is what they know. So one of the reasons that we really want to have panels like this is to show real estate agents that technology maybe isn't so scary and there are easy places for them to start.
Exactly, because what they're doing now, we would say they're creating ABA files. So they're manually doing that or through their systems. So we want to take them to the creation and download and upload of ABA generation to actually API transaction execution to ensure that the money is in the right place at the right time.
Well, we've heard some horrible stories of people paying that 10% deposit on their property and unfortunately being victims of fraud because the instructions were sent by email from their solicitor, and that solicitor's email was either intercepted or someone pretended to be the solicitor, sent through an email saying, oh, send it to this BSB account number. And that's a horrifying situation for people paying hundreds of thousands of their own money to secure what they think could possibly be their dream and forever home. Is this also somewhere that Pay ID and, you know, unique one-off Pay IDs can help?
Yes, absolutely. So we're actually doing this with a couple sales companies right now. So there's two options. You could do, like you said, at the fall of the hammer, generate that Pay ID, because on the MPP, transactions settle through the Zepto platform in sub 2 seconds, 365 days a year. So if the auction is on Saturday or Sunday or at night, it's still going to be within the act. So it's for that person, and we can even check with penny verification that that person is the correct person. Now you can also do the IAV, so digitally onboarding them if it's a private treaty situation, to ensure that it is that person, it is that bank account, and you can direct debit that particular bank account. There's ramifications around which bank account you can direct debit from. So the opportunities are really endless as to which way that sales or rentals platform would like to control the payments.
I love that use case in particular. One of our board members at the Proptech Association Australia is Kylie Dillon, who is a highly experienced conveyancer, and I've had a discussion around her as to how people practically actually do pay the deposit. I mean, it's amazing how many people are still actually, you know, taking a personal checkbook to auctions.
They're doing that. They're also doing just a bank transfer showing how it is. Yep. I was a leasing officer. That's how I'd be like, oh, you paid your bond, you can move in today, as well as doing bank checks. So a lot of commercial properties, because they're really expensive, will go and get that hundreds of thousands of dollars in bank checks so that they can hand them multiple stacks. So by doing instant account verification or pre-qualifying the bidder, we can ensure that they don't have to use bank checks and they do pay the deposit on the fall of the hammer as well.
Pre-qualifying the bidder sounds very interesting. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
So that's through the IAV, so our open banking platform, where we digitally onboard with the full name, BSB, and account number. So we're ensuring with the IAV for rentals and sales that we're going to eliminate fraud, because it is that person, it is that bank account, and we can direct debit out of there. We're eliminating claims and dishonors in that way, because we're checking the funds as well. So you can pre-qualify your bidders that they are who they say they are, that the money is in the bank account, to ensure that you can either get it through direct debit or Pay ID afterwards. So we are bringing on one company that is going to use that in their pre-registration.
Excellent. Love it. Thank you so much, Rebecca. I'll come back and have a wrap up with you. But for the moment, Jacob, hello. Let's understand a little bit more about LIZpay, please. What's your elevator pitch?
For sure. So LIZpay is a payments platform for property tenants. We help renters manage and make their rental payments, as well as other household bills like gas, water, and electricity. LIZpay has been built for tenants to provide them with their own experience. So their payments are not going to be dictated by when their landlord sets the due date or when their gas bill's due by their electricity or their gas provider. We do this by helping renters align their rental cycles with their pay cycles so that they can pay weekly, fortnightly, or monthly, depending on when they get paid. We let them split the rent and bills between people they live with, depending on if they want to split it between a percentage or an amount. And we also let users carry their accounts between tenancies. So if you change from one real estate agent to another real estate agent, renters will still be using the one platform to make and manage all of their rental payments. And lastly, we're providing a safety net for renters. So we know with the rise of insecure work, with the rise of renting as a life cycle, but as well as the challenge that are facing sort of the younger demographic, that there's a safety net there that you can borrow money off LIZpay for a short-term payment to make sure that you're not going in default of your lease, because there are really strong ramifications for tenants that miss their payments, including eviction. So we're trying to prevent that and to ensure that they stay in their properties.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, one of the things I really like about LIZpay is your focus on the tenant. I mean, there's nothing to say it's wrong on focusing on the landlord. Proptech is a wide marketplace, and I think it's actually a really interesting signal as to the evolution and maturity of the Proptech ecosystem, that now we have a Proptech Fintech combo like LIZpay looking at the experience of the tenant. Can you tell us where the name LIZpay comes from?
Yeah, so when we focused in on the exact idea of helping tenants make and manage their payments, one of our co-founders, Tom Phillips, and we were talking to him and saying, oh, well, Tom, how do you manage your money? Who helps you and how do you do it? And he goes, oh, my mum, Liz, just helps me manage all my payments. You know, she does it for everyone in the family. She, you know, she's the bookkeeper. She's the one that keeps everyone in check. So the idea is that Liz is a persona throughout the app that's helping users to set their deposit schedule, to alert them when their rental payments are due, to alert them when their bills are coming up. So Liz is there for tenants. Liz is there to help tenants, and yeah, it's a sort of a nice. It's nice to bring it back to home, especially for Tom, and telling his mum that, you know, he's naming the business after her. It was quite an enjoyable experience. So, you know, that's LIZpay, and I think what you touched on before, the landscape for PropTech on the agent and self-managed landlord side is definitely getting very mature. And what we want to be is the application on every tenant's phone, on every tenant's desktop that lets them manage their payments, but that's agnostic to the property management software that their landlord is using or the way that their landlord wants to receive rent. So we really want it to be tenant focused and not to be, you know, interrupted by whatever the property manager is doing. We want to work with property management softwares. We want to work with large real estate agencies to make sure that things like reconciliation, things like reference numbers, making sure that tenants are using the correct reference numbers to pay rent, things like that are all making the property managers' lives easier as well.
Jacob, you gave us already a little bit of a picture of some of the challenges that LIZpay solves for. Could you tell us now how you're using technology to do that? And in particular, can you tell us a little bit more about the digital wallet? For
sure. So all of the funds that are transacted via the LIZpay platform are through our payments partner, Assembly Payments, which is now Zai. So every single individual user on the platform is assigned their own digital wallet. It has their own BSB and account number. So we don't have issues like reconciliation errors or things of that nature. Those funds are held by Assembly on trust for that tenant. So until the point in time that they are actually transferred to the property manager, those funds are still under the control of that individual tenant. And that's a big difference between us and other payments platforms in the rental space. Once a renter transfers money, that money is gone. It's no longer theirs. It's gone to the real estate agent. If you want to pay someone that wants to pay weekly, for example, and they want a budget, so they want to pay a quarter of their rent every week up until the rent day, that user can transfer that amount of money into their Assembly, into their Zai wallet. On the rent day, those funds go directly to the landlord. So they still have control over those funds before that money has moved to the landlord. And
which means they've got flexibility.
Exactly. They've got complete flexibility in how they want to transfer, in when they want to transfer, the amounts they want to transfer. If they want to give some of the rent to another housemate this week because I'm short, I can say to the person I live with, hey, do you mind covering my $250 of this month's rent? And they can all do that from within the app and realign this particular month's rental transaction. In terms of what we've done with open banking, we're really excited to partner with Basiq, and we're working through the use case with them at the moment. So Kyle touched on this earlier. When we're onboarding a user, we can use Basiq to work out when that user gets paid, and we can suggest to them when they would want to deposit funds to align with their pay cycle. We can pull their BSB and account number and bank account information so that they have a direct debit consent authority that is presented to them in the app. It says, is this the account you want us to direct debit funds from? And we can also work out when their upcoming bill payments are. So we can see that their last electricity bill was a month ago and they pay electricity every quarter. We can say to them, we expect your electricity bill will be due in 2 months. Would you like to start putting some funds aside for your electricity bill today? And that user has complete control over whether or not they want to start saving for their electricity bill, or it comes time to that electricity bill being due. We say, would you like to pay that now? They say yes, they can transfer funds via the NPP. they're received instantly in their digital wallet and then paid out to that electricity provider to make sure that they're paid on time. I think the other one for us is the new payments platform. It is really exciting what's in the development pipeline there, especially with Pay2. It does allow for the movement of funds from tenant to agent to eliminate any of that wait time that Rebecca was talking about. I think for us, for users to be able to deposit directly, but also for us to direct debit that user, whatever their amount is, for that to show instantly in their digital wallet is going to be really exciting when that launches in hopefully June next year. But we are really lucky that there are a number of fintechs out there, a number of technology companies out there that have built a lot of this infrastructure that allows LIZpay to solve a core problem for the tenant, and we don't need to worry about developing all of this other software because people like Basiq, people like Assembly have done that for us. So we can really focus on the user experience in the app, making sure that the app is working for users how it's meant to and really helping solve the problem in their lives.
Yeah, I think that's a great testament to, finding the right partner. So you just buy something in rather than build it. It's a message that I think slowly is making its way to some of the top ends of town in banking, finance and property. But yeah, great to hear you say that too, Jacob. I'm curious here. I'm kind of just connecting the dots a little bit. I think property potentially could be a very interesting use case for the consumer data right, as it does roll out to energy, because that physical property is the point of connection for so much. We've got a question, Jacob. I don't know if do you know some of the businesses out there that help you change your address and help you move over your utilities when you move house?
I'm just looking at the question now. So 100%, what LIZpay wants to be able to do is connect with the businesses out there that are helping tenants to set up via marketplaces. So we're very conscious of not being a marketplace, but a tenant that wants to connect their gas, water, or electricity through a marketplace. They're the sort of partnerships that we're looking for, because we want a tenant to be able to register for their gas and electricity, have that information immediately provided to LIZpay so that we can manage the payment of that gas and electricity bill over the forward cycle. And I think the consumer data right and being able to give each individual user the control of their own data and who they give it to and how it helps them in their daily life. So for us in the energy sector, for a user to be able to, let's say this user doesn't want to use open banking with Basiq because they are conscious of privacy with their bank account, which is perfectly understandable, but they may be comfortable sharing with us who their electricity provider is and when that electricity bill is due. We can all of a sudden use that information to help them budget on the LIZpay platform and know when their bills are going to be due and things of that nature. So for us, being a tenant-focused business and being consumer-focused, anything that gives consumers more choice and more control over their own personal data and information is of benefit to us.
Mm. And last question for you, Jacob. As you're telling people that this is now what you're doing, because I think you used to be a lawyer, is that right?
So yeah, I was a property lawyer and worked a lot in the conveyancing and leasing space, and a few of the issues before spoken about in terms of direct debiting deposits and bank transferring deposits. I've seen people pay hundreds of thousands of dollars by $5,000 increments because they've got bank limits. And so I certainly know a lot of the use cases that Rebecca was speaking about. And I think it's just, for me, it's about solving a problem for people. That was the aspect of the law that I enjoyed, and I'm really excited to bring that problem-solving nature towards LIZpay and helping people in their daily lives manage and make their rental payments.
So what kind of feedback are you getting from people when you're telling them that this is now what you're doing?
Yeah, so we're really excited. We're in a beta testing phase at the moment. The application itself is completed, but we're mindful of launching this and making sure the user experience is as good as it can possibly be. And when we're speaking to people, especially tenants, they're saying, in a share house scenario, why hasn't someone else done this before? There's Splitwise at the moment where you can set aside, this is how much that Kyle and Rebecca owe me, but there's no ability over Splitwise to actually go and make that payment. So the share house, everyone we've spoken to in a share house, and it is the demographic of myself and the other co-founders, Baxter and Tom. We have a lot of people we know that live in share housing, and the ability for them to split their bills, split their rent amongst the people they live with. The reception has been phenomenal. It's really exciting. We're very, very close to our launch. It will be this year, and we can't wait to go live and get the application in as many people's hands as we possibly can and continue to grow.
But it's a key point, I think, in there about LIZpay, in that you actually ensure the payment is made and you have a large variety of different payment options. You're not restricted by it being, you're having to go in one manner or another. And I think that's a key difference as well. It's one thing to actually ensure the funds are ready to go. It's another thing for someone in the house or everyone in the house to have the peace of mind that if Jennifer was meant to pay the gas bill today, she actually did. And then when you check with me later, it's like, Jen, did you pay the gas bill? And I'm like, oh no.
100%. And I think the ability for different tenants to pay via different means. So you could have one person who loves using direct debit because they can set and forget, they don't have to worry. You have another person who wants to receive notifications on their phone and do a bank transfer. And then you might have another person who wants to use a debit card. So with LIZpay, each of those tenants can transfer money into their own digital wallet via their preferred payment method. And then the money moves from LIZpay to the real estate agent in the most cost-effective means as well. So for real estate agencies, if you're receiving funds, for example, via BPay, and that's costing you money, the ability to say to your tenants, I'll use LIZpay and use this BSB and account number so the funds can move directly to their trust account. The reference number will be correct every single time, so it's auto-reconciled with their property management software. I think is just how we're trying to improve the efficiency of that payment flow between renter and landlord or property manager.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Jacob. If anyone does have a question for anyone on the panel, please feel free to use the Q&A function, or if you'd like to make a comment, you could put that in the chat. Kyle, could I come back to you now, please? And two kind of roundup questions for you.
Sure.
One, the name Basiq. I always love asking where the names of the businesses come from. So first question is, where does the name Basiq come from? And secondly, if you could look into the future as to what Basiq can do in the property industry, is there something we haven't mentioned yet that you'd like to share that's got you really excited?
Sure. So firstly, the name Basiq, it's a really good question. I had to do some digging myself. So our founder and CEO, Demir, actually started with another idea before creating Basiq. And he was interested in creating a platform that was really going to help customers access their finance. And what he found along the way was the actual hardest part of that whole journey was getting basic access to that customer data that you need to understand whether they're eligible for finance. And this financial data is super important. It sits tightly locked away with the banks. So we kind of pivoted and embarked on a journey to unlock this data and build a platform that would help consumers share and businesses consume that financial. The actual spelling or name of Basiq comes from two parts. So not only did we want to provide a database, but we wanted to provide insights and intelligence on top of that. So you take base and you take IQ and you get Basiq.
Wonderful. I didn't know that. So thank you very much. That makes total sense.
No, you're right. So I think, look, you touched on it a little bit before, but some of the stuff in the future, I think, is about this idea of, the integration of telcos and utilities. I think Jacob summed it up really well. It's about kind of having that whole user journey in one place, and the consumer is building trust with the, the Proptech or the property business they're dealing with, and the ability for them to integrate those two pieces, which are fundamentally linked to the property, is really exciting. But I think the idea of creating a single user journey, as we spoke about before, which is from a tenant going from a rental to purchasing a property, I think there's a lot of work to be done there, and that integration of the each part being connected together, I think, is super important. It's innovation like that Basiq, the team over at Basiq, is super excited to work with Proptech on.
Perfect. And Kyle, how can people find out more about Basiq and also connect with you?
Sure. So basiq.io is you can find us on the website. We've got a really cool partner showcase live on the website as well. So if you're interested about any other use cases or other businesses we work on, we display them all there, as well as we have an open sandbox. So if anyone's interested in actually seeing how to use the data and what the data looks like, you can jump on there, grab an API key and jump into the data.
Perfect. Rebecca, is there anything else we haven't covered that you'd like to share re Zepto or property? And also, how can people find out more and also connect with you? Oh, you're on mute.
So to find out more, you can go to zepto.com.au, but you can also connect with me directly on LinkedIn and we can have a chat. Like I said, all PropTechs think they're basically doing the same things, but everybody has their own individual use case and what they would like to do. So we'd love to help future-proof that payment flow in the account to account with everybody.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And Jacob, there actually was a question that came up about whether you are building any extra features in there to help people who are looking to find a rental property.
Definitely. So one thing that LIZpay will be launching once we are live and we do have our tenants on the platform is a form of rental resume. So you will have all of your previous payments history, on-time payments and things of that nature. We can use basic open data information to give your prospective real estate agent all of the information that you want to give to that real estate agent in terms of you as a renter, your financial position. And another thing that we're working on is to be able to provide instant bond payments so that when you are approved for a property, because you'll be registered with LIZpay, we can automatically pay your bond for you to the real estate agent, making sure that you secure that property immediately. So we really are looking to be tenant focused, and certainly the looking to rent and in the market for rent user is someone that we want to be able to service and provide functionality for.
Great. And where can people go to find out more about LIZpay? Do you have a waiting list?
Yes, so if anyone's interested, any tenants out there at lizpay.com.au, you can pre-register to be one of our first live users. You can also check us out on Facebook and LinkedIn, but lizpay.com.au is where you can check us out, and really excited to see where it goes from here.
And what's the best way for people to reach out and connect with you personally?
For me, anyone that wants to connect with me on LinkedIn and have a chat about what we're doing, feel free. It's just Jacob Serry, and I look forward to speaking with anyone.
Wonderful. Well, that has been brilliant. Thank you so much, everyone. We've got some great comments coming in on the chat saying it was a really great session, very articulate, and people have learned a lot. And personally, that was a lot of fun for me. So I think now it's time to say thank you. So thank you very much to Kyle Abourizk from Basiq.
Thanks, Jennifer. Thank you so much for having me. Great session.
Thank you to Rebecca Ribeiro from Zepto.
Thanks so much. I love this today.
And thank you to Jacob Serry from LIZpay.
Thank you so much, Jennifer, and also to the Proptech Association and Stone and Chalk for hosting today. It really is much appreciated.
Our pleasure. Thank you to John Mins for doing the intro today. If you don't know, John has recently been appointed New South Wales's first, am I going to get this right, Property Services Commissioner. Is that right, John?
I'm pretty sure that's the correct title. I haven't started yet, so they'll let me know when I get there.
So as I said before, that is our final Proptech panel for 2021. We will be back in 2022. Please follow us on our LinkedIn page, Proptech Association Australia. And if you don't already get our newsletter, you can hop over to our website, proptechassociation.com.au, and subscribe for the newsletter. And I look forward to seeing you very soon. Bye-bye.